Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata. This is the Real 50 Over 50. And this week we have Orly Zeewy with us, and she is a speaker, an author, and a brand architect. So I am just going to hand this over to Orly and let her tell you a little bit about herself. And then we're going to get into a conversation about being over 50 and how wonderful it is.
Well, thank you so much, Donna, for inviting me. I've actually really been looking forward to our conversation. So a little bit about me. Yes, I actually grew up on three continents. I'm and 5 countries, and I am trilingual. And I feel that that kind of experience. It took me a long time to understand this, but it really is part of why I think I do the work I do, because so
Mhm.
much of being in different countries, and when you don't know the language, you have to really be able to pay attention and
Yes.
listen and watch verbal nonverbal cues. And that, that's something that I realized, like, somewhere along the line, that, oh, this is why I do the kind of work I do, which is really to help people figure out who they are. Because honestly, I've spent my whole life trying to figure that out myself, because I feel like I'm really a citizen of the world. And even
Mhm.
though I've lived in the United States most of my life now, and I am a citizen, a naturalized citizen, I still feel like there are parts of me that are not quite fully Americanized. But anyhow, that's a little bit about my background.
What other countries, continents were you living in?
So I was born in Israel, and I lived in Paris and in Switzerland, and before we
Oh.
came to the United States. Yeah.
That's a nice little background there, and lots of different cultures and
Lots.
foods and
Yeah.
experiences, weather.
Yeah. So I've been to almost every European country. I've been
Mhm.
to Egypt as well as Israel, and I think it was another part I can't remember, but I know I've been to Egypt, and I know where the Jordan River is.
Egypt was one of my favorite trips.
It's beautiful country. Yep.
It is a beautiful place, and the
Yes.
people are so incredibly nice. Um, so now we're gonna swing into business. Well, you know what? Let's go. What happened to you when you turned 50? Because I believe I'm not a demographics person, but I believe when we turn 50, something happens to us.
Yes.
We change.
You know what I found, actually, Donna, is that when I turned 50, I realized I didn't have all the time in the world to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I went back to school and I got an
Mhm.
MBA, something I've been wanting to do for years. And I wrote my book, Ready Launch Brand: The Lean Marketing Guide for Startups. And I just decided that I was gonna go all in really focusing on founders and startups, solopreneurs, micro companies, micro businesses.
Mhm.
And once I did that, there was like the shift of energy, because up till then, I was doing exactly what I tell my clients not to do.
What to do.
Don't talk to everyone. Pick a lane. Pick your
Ah,
lane. All right. So here I was
mm,
doing exactly the same thing. I was trying to talk to everybody. I was doing work for family businesses, for corporate clients.
mhm.
I realized, what I'm really passionate about is helping founders. And I'm sure this is no surprise to you that there's a very high failure rate for startups. I think by year 5, 70% fail.
Yeah, yeah.
So to me, if you can really get into marketing earlier and understand how to use it properly for startups, which is very different than how you're using it for a
Yeah,
brand like Starbucks or
yeah.
Nike,
It's
there's
personal. It's personal.
personal, and it's not about advertising. So
No.
this is one of the things that people really don't understand about marketing, is they think, oh, and this is why there's that paradigm of, well, I'm going to wait, and this is actually one of the myths that I debunk in my book, which is, we'll pay for marketing when we have money to pay for
Mhm,
marketing, right? And marketing is the engine to sales. So
mhm.
without marketing, there are no
Yeah,
sales.
yeah.
So, but it's not about, doing a 30-second spot on the Super Bowl. Nobody can afford that. It's
No,
millions of
no,
dollars.
and the other thing is too, is like when people come out of corporate and start their own businesses, they think that, they can hand this over to somebody else to do.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, you know what? I'm so glad you said that, Donna, because you can't, because what
You
you're doing
can't.
is you're handing over your voice.
Yes. Oh
So,
my God, you literally took those words out of my mouth.
I mean, right? It's just, yeah.
You can't.
And
You just can't.
yeah.
I was at an event many years ago, and Carrie Kirpin was speaking, and somebody from she was explaining the way they worked at Likeable Media at the time, and somebody from the audience said, "Well, when can I hire you?" And she said, "Never." And the woman was like, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "You can never hire me. You can't afford me, and you need to learn to do this for yourself." And I was like, "Oh my God. Yes, 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 yes. Keep saying it. Keep saying it."
Well, because what happens when you don't do that, you hire a junior person, because again, this goes back to some of these myths that I've, kind of explored over my career. And one of them is somehow like, oh, we'll just hire a junior person and they're just going to do social media posts.
Yeah.
And what they don't
An
understand.
intern. Give your
What's that?
social media to an
Oh yeah,
intern.
actually, that's exactly what I say in my book. Yeah, an intern, and sometimes I'm an intern, and then you wonder, like, why am I not getting traction from these posts? Why am I not converting on my website? And it's so interesting to me how people will hire a really seasoned IT person, but they'll bring in an intern for their marketing.
Yeah, yeah,
Hello, I don't.
yeah, yeah. They'll spend $25,000 on a website, but they won't hire a copywriter, a good copywriter.
Or somebody to help them figure out what they want
Yes,
to talk about in the first
yes,
place, which is kind
yes.
of, this is my, that's
Yeah,
my space.
exactly. Like, what do I do?
Like, who are you? Like, you're
Yeah.
not just, and so what happens is, and this is, you've hit on like one of my favorite topics, which is I land on somebody's homepage and there's only two things I want to know. Why am I here and why should I care?
Yeah.
And the problem is that most people create a homepage that's all internally focused, all about how great we are, we're a wonderful company, here is our new hire, whatever it may be. And what I don't get is, how are you going to help me? And then the second thing that people tend to do, and this is more on the solopreneur side, they go right into action, like, sign up for my newsletter, connect with me,
Yeah.
let's schedule a call. It's like, I don't even know what you
Right.
do, and you're
Let's
already
get
serious.
married.
Yeah, exactly. Like, forget the first, you forget the third or fourth date. We're going right from like, nice to meet you, to let's get married. That's a good analogy, Donna. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, I'm just gonna flip over to your light bulb moments now, because that light bulb moment when they realize, oh, sunk costs. I spent a lot of money on that and it's never gonna get me anywhere.
Exactly. And you had spoken about, spending 25K on a website. A lot of people don't even do that. They'll do it themselves. And then they're like, well, the first question I usually ask is, what's your conversion rate from visitors to prospects? And they're like, none.
Yeah.
And then what happens is, of course, then they say, well, yeah, but it doesn't really matter. Nobody really cares about a website. I'm like, not true. Actually, people do care if it's set up properly. Then it's really about, can I see something here that is going to help me? Because that's the only reason they want to get on there. It's not to learn about you, although eventually, yes, they're going to dig further. And certainly you want to have information about you and your company. But the first thing is, like I said, why am I here? What is this, and why am I here, and how can you help me? And if I don't get that in the first 6 seconds, which is about the average American, adult American's attention span,
Mhm.
I leave. I don't come back. And worst of all, I don't tell anyone about it.
Yeah, yeah, and they never come back. I mean, that's the
They
other
don't
thing.
come
Like,
back.
once they're gone forever. So
Because
whatever effort you put into getting them there is just dissipated.
you had a shot, right? It's that window of opportunity.
Yes.
So, and the same is true with LinkedIn. So I talk a lot about LinkedIn because I feel like,
Mhm.
that's really, since I work with B2B businesses, what I have learned is, and I'm sure you know this as well, Donna, people go there first. They go to LinkedIn first. And if they don't find
Yeah.
anything there, they sure as heck don't go to your website, you know.
No, and when they search in a search result, LinkedIn comes up quickly in a search result.
It
So
does.
you want to have, you want to have your little statement under your name, really represent what you do and who you do it for. Speak to that person because that's showing up right in a search result before they even click on anything.
And the interesting thing about that, you're saying about light bulb moments, is there's this sense, and I hear this, I'm sure you do too, that people say, well, I'm going to leave people out. What am I going to do? I can't leave people out. And what I say to them is, first of all, you're not able to speak to everyone. You're not even,
Yeah.
are you really looking for everyone to be your client? You're looking
No.
for your ideal clients, right? The best people. And that light bulb moment is, oh, you mean it's okay for me to only speak to, women 40 and
Mm.
up who have 5 children or whatever,
Yeah, which
whatever
is
it is.
bazillions of people.
It's still,
I know that we are both Seth Godin fans.
yes.
And he has a blog post called Almost No One. It's one of my favorite blog posts that he's ever written. And it's
Fabulous.
basically like, know who you're speaking to because you can't speak to everyone. When you speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
Exactly. In
And
fact, I quoted him in my book, and reached out to him when the book was
mhm,
published, and he endorsed it, which was like kind of that was kind of
excellent.
my moment there.
Yeah. I'm a let me see if I have it here. I do. I'm an alum, alt NBA.
Yep.
And proud alum. And it's so important to know who you speak to, and that's another light bulb moment, because when you understand that, everything becomes infinitely easier. All the space junk just kind of falls away, and those 5 different directions you were going in just kind of slim down because you're only speaking to this one person.
And
And that
what's nice about that, and brought up another really important point, is it then also simplifies what social media platform you should be.
yes, of course.
Because, so there's this whole, there's a whole slew of things you could be doing. But if you're not talking to women, don't get on Pinterest, right?
Yeah.
Because some 85% of Pinterest users
Mhm.
are women. If you're talking to people under 35, you need to be on Instagram.
Mhm.
There's all, so once you get, and that's why that clarity is so important, to really focus on, first it's what do I do, and the second is who needs it,
Mhm.
and the third is communicating it so your ideal client gets it, wants it, values it, and
Yes,
will pay a premium for it,
yes. And we'll come back.
and will come
And
back and tell
I'll
everyone.
tell everybody else, become an advocate. We are on the same page, my friend. And, you just can't say it enough. I have, basically took the last year and redesigned my business because I had built myself into a business that I was really unhappy with. And, I took a course that I created 12 years ago. It was called the Total Social PR System, and it was social media, content development, SEO, PR, all of these things mixed together. And I rebuilt it, and most of it hasn't changed. It's the same because it's about listening and connecting and knowing your audience and all the things we're talking about. And those things don't change. And then this was one of the other things I wanted to ask you because I know we have a lot of similarities in the work that we do and our approach. What are your thoughts on AI?
I was wondering why it took you so long to get to that question. AI is the new shiny thing.
Yeah.
The internet was the new shiny thing, and it took about 5 years for people to really understand how to use it properly.
Mhm.
I think the same thing is going to happen this time
Yeah.
because it's a tool. It's like
It's a
any
tool.
other tool.
Yes.
What I really hope is that people will, once they get over the excitement, the newness, yes, you can put in a word and get 300 words in 10 seconds, from a bot. And that's exciting. But the question is, are they the right words? Do they really help
Exactly.
in any way, shape, or form? And I'm sure that technology will become more advanced, and
Mhm,
the bots will be smarter.
mhm.
But I still want to see. I still want to hear the human voice.
Yes, yes. I've built some of that into my new, course that I created, but it's all about, using it to solve a business problem and then weighing it, "Is this good advice?" Or "What can I take from this?" But, I saw a I saw a post in a Facebook group that I'm in the other day, and, somebody asked, what tool could they use to create thousands of blog posts in minutes? And there were about 60 comments of like, "Why would you wanna do that? Don't do that, stop. Don't do that, that's terrible." There is no tool, I hope there never is one.
And again, it goes back to what is the problem
E
you need to solve,
exactly.
and what will getting 1,000, whatever it is, it's not. People get so like worked up about the numbers.
Yeah.
The important thing is, do you have 100 really super qualified people on your email list versus 10,000, none of whom ever open your newsletter? It's like you have to really. I think sometimes people have to just step back
Yeah.
and say, wait a second,
Yeah.
what do I want to do? What is it that, who do I love working with? Like, here's a
Right.
question people don't ask enough. Who do
Mhm.
you love working with? What are you passionate about? How does that feed you? Working, for me, as I mentioned, I love working with startups. Why? I love working with founders because they're super passionate about what they're doing. I've worked with a lot of disruptors because
Mhm.
they actually want to do something to make the world a better place.
Yeah.
I find that incredibly inspiring and exciting, and I want to help them do that.
Yeah. I agree, I agree, and, I mean, that's part of this whole project that I created here because I was watching the Forbes 50 over 50 on the news, and, it was all household names and, or people that were titans of industry, and, that's not who's really moving and shaking the world. We're doing this little by little together collectively in small groups, and we're really making a difference, and more people need to know about what we do.
Exactly. And who better to support each other
Yeah.
than this, group like this that, the whole point is to pay it forward. It's
Yes.
not, there's enough. And I'm sure you are with me on this. There's more than enough work for all of us.
Oh, absolutely,
Way more,
absolutely.
right? I like you. I mean, it's like I have my zone, my
Yeah. I
place,
mean, like, how many clients do you need a year?
exactly.
20, 30? Pick a number. It's not a lot. I always go back to Seth's blog post,
I
almost no
love
one.
those. Yeah.
And the last line of that blog post is, "Who's your almost no one? Who's your no one?" And, figuring out who that no one is that's the key. Because, like, what do you actually need? And, like, when clients come to me, like, they'll come to me and tell me how much money they spent on things they never needed.
Yeah.
And
I
I'm
hear
like,
that too. I
I'm sure you do.
yeah.
And it just really breaks my heart. I mean, a big part of my mission is to make sure that people don't get ripped off
Yeah. And
because
what's really interesting about what you just said, Donna, is, I liken it to, so with people who, a lot of people who I've worked with, have done these online courses and watched these videos. And here's what happens with that. It's sort of like this. If I were to give you the American dictionary, right? It's got every word in the English language. Now go write a book. It's like that, right? I mean, it's information, but without guidance,
without guidance. Yeah.
without a framework, without understanding the process and what comes first. And and they have all these things. Yeah, they're doing personas
Mhm.
and all this stuff. And it's like, you're a solopreneur.
And the thing is it doesn't fit in a box.
It does
It
not.
doesn't, because everybody's story is different, everybody's experiences are different, and this is what builds trust. And this is the thing that the people have the hardest time with, is like telling their own story. I mean, it's like cutting your own hair, or, seeing the label from the inside of the jar. You can't do it. You need somebody that can see things that you can't see to guide you through the process. And it's such a valuable, um, it's almost a gift, I feel, because
It is a gift, actually, and but the funny thing is, I'm sure you feel the same. I can't do this for myself, so I may have this gift for other
oh,
people,
yeah, yeah,
but
that's
I still can't do it because we are too close.
we're too close.
The
It's
reason I can help people who are not me is because I don't have skin in the game. I don't have the, I'm not wedded to a particular outcome. And
Mhm.
what happens when it's your brand? You are so close to it. It's hard to know what to let go because you don't have that perspective, stepping back and going, wait a second. I can't tell you how many times I've worked with somebody, and when I start to kind of unpack, what
Mhm.
they do and who they are, and I'm thinking, why is it you never mention X, Y, or Z? And they're like, oh, nobody really cares about that. Really? Actually, they do, they do care about this
I
quite a bit,
know, I know.
right?
Oh my goodness.
You run into that all the
I
time.
I created a whole product around that,
Yeah.
because as I was redesigning my own business, um, I one of the things that I did for a client was I created these little brand story videos, and, I was calling them speaker and book reels when I first launched them. But then people would come to me wanting a speaker reel, but they didn't have anything to have a speaker reel. They had no images of them on stage or anything like that. So I just started to call them mixtapes. And they were little brand stories. But that's what really kind of made me redesign my whole business, because I saw all this work that I was doing for all these years that I just did it. Like I just did it because it needed to be done. But I realized that that was the work that I loved doing. I loved finding the gaps in their stories and then shining it back at them and saying, like, this is you. And then one of two things happen. They leave and they never come back, or they cry.
I have to tell you, I've made grown men cry. Yes, I have. Yes.
It is. It's really empowering. It's empowering as the provider. It's also empowering as the person on the receiving end, because they forget. They forget that these things happened in their lives, so they think nobody will care about it, or the imposter syndrome pops up and starts kicking them around. And it's a fascinating process. And I mean, everybody does need to go through this. And it needs to happen routinely.
Yeah, it's not a one and done. I mean,
No,
you want to check
no,
in. It's like you're checking in with yourself. Am I still
yeah,
relevant?
yes,
And there's so many examples of brands that forgot to do that. I'm thinking of Kodak is like a perfect example. I mean, they invented
yeah.
the
The moments of your life.
at
The moments of your life.
the moments of your life, but they literally invented the first personal camera.
Mhm,
Yet they completely missed the opportunity
yeah,
when digital happened.
yeah,
It's like they just kind of looked at that and go,
yeah, they totally did. They
So
totally
even and again, there are so many examples of companies like this that really missed the opportunity. I mean, why did the iPhone become I mean, iPhone wasn't the first, you know, but
no,
they realized something. They hit on something that no one else had thought of, which is to create an ecosystem around your phone. And the
yeah,
whole app store, none of that existed before 2007. I mean, we
yeah.
forget that it really hasn't been around that long.
And not just that, but the community around it, like the
Exactly.
Apple
Yes.
purchasers, Apple people, you know? I mean, I remember when I worked in the law firm, it was probably around 1997, 98, and we were all getting cell phones. And the partners all had these, they were called Star Tech flip phones. and only the partners had them, so it was this whole culture thing, class thing of the flip phone. So I went down to Verizon and I got me a flip phone just like the partners had. I was not a partner, I was not a lawyer, and I'm walking around the halls with my little StarTAC, and they were furious. They were furious.
So funny. That's so funny.
I made
Yeah.
myself a master of the universe.
If only it would take a phone to help us become that, right?
Yeah, that was it. But it was, I mean, and that was just me. I poke sticks. That's what I do. So they needed a stick poked at them. And let's see. So one of the things that we also both talk about, and I'd love to get some input on you, is cutting through the noise. I have been talking about this for years because there is so much noise, and it's only going to get noisier now that people want to spin 1,000 articles in a few minutes.
God.
So
Yeah.
can you share a quick strategy on that?
So, I've been saying, it's a noisy world, stand out, right? I specifically use the image of Times Square because Times
Mhm.
Square is it's basically the epicenter of advertising messaging. If you stood in the middle of Times Square, you would be surrounded by something like 300 messages. And our
Wow.
brain cannot possibly take in 300 messages. And this is just one place, right? In one city. But I use it because it's an image that certainly in the United States, everyone recognizes it. So the interesting thing about cutting through the noise is it's not about being noisier. It's not about putting more stuff out there. It's about figuring out what is relevant to the people you want to attract. And so to do that, you have to do some research. You have to listen. You have to ask people. You have to spend time on different social media platforms to see where people congregate. What are they talking about?
Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly, right?
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, the thing that I've been saying on that is listening is the least used strategy.
Agreed. And
And
you, as someone who went through the MBA program that I did, we learned about design thinking, and of course, what's the first step to design thinking?
it's active listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to listen to even hear if you are solving the right problem.
Yes.
So often, and I teach, so I'm an educator, and I've been teaching around startups and how to go from idea to a pitch deck. And the first thing I say is, have you figured out the right problem?
Mhm.
Right? Because so often, and this happens all the time. Companies build entire company is built around the wrong problem, and then they try to sell it to the wrong person,
Yeah.
and then they go, I don't understand why we're not.
Then they blame the intern that they gave the social media.
Marketing. No, see that this then ties into this goes right into the personal bias that marketing is smoke and mirrors, that it
Yeah.
doesn't work anyway. So, right? I mean, it's just I just find that so fascinating. I spoke to 25 entrepreneurs, when I wrote my book, and the thing that always amazes me is how little time was actually spent in the research
Yeah.
of understanding. I had one of my interviewees did everything right and became super successful. And
Mhm.
she's a pediatrician. She spent 6 months literally listening to moms, finding who the main mom, the connector mom was. I mean, it was so brilliant. And I thought,
This is
wow,
exactly what I teach people to do. I never tie my marketing to the bottom line. Never.
right. No,
It
no. And that's, yes, exactly. That's the
it's
problem.
not connected.
It's
You
not,
you need
it's not,
yeah, you don't need figure out your sales strategy over there. This is about your messaging. It's different.
it's
It's
different.
different, and it doesn't, so much of it doesn't fit into a spreadsheet.
Well, because marketing doesn't belong on a spreadsheet.
No,
It's an
no.
investment. When you buy a building, you don't expect I spent X and therefore I'm going to get Y out of the
Mhm.
building. You
Yeah.
think of it in terms of how you're going to use the building. Does it fit your needs? Is it going to fit? Am I going to be able to grow? Right? These are the questions you ask for those kinds of things. And software is very much like that too. It's, you know, you invest in it because it's constantly changing. And so
Mhm.
I don't, part of, and I'm sure you are on the same page with me on this, is like marketing needs to be seen that way. It's an investment.
Mm.
It's not a cost. It's not a widget. It does
No,
not live on your spreadsheet and then you can say, well, I spent X on marketing and I got Y. No, you
no.
spent X on marketing and maybe you didn't lose as much money as you were losing the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Maybe you got the types of clients that you never could before because you got clear on who that client is, what they need, what they want, and how you're helping them become the hero of their own story.
Yeah. I was working with bigger clients, and that's when I just decided I just can't do this anymore. Because they just all they were interested in is, like, how many comments are we getting? And they were in mental health, and I was like, People lurk. People are not going to put their mental health issues out online. They're not doing it. So they're gonna listen and they're gonna lurk." And I said, "But what you need to be measuring is the phone ringing more. Are more people signing up for things?"
And the right people, I might.
Yeah, 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 exactly, and that was happening. Like, "Do you need more staff because you're busier?" And, like, we just never could get on the same page with any of that, and it was so incredibly frustrating because 'cause I'm watching it happen. And then the other thing is I'm watching that everything that we're creating for them is evergreen, and they can use it over and over again. I had 2 years worth of social in the bank for them, all scheduled out in tools, and it was relevant because it was evergreen. And,
Yeah.
I had a whole content plan for them where month by month there was a different topic, and they were able to recycle that into the next year, talking about the same topics from a different point of view or a different part of it, and they were just, like, asking the wrong questions.
Well, and of course, if you ask the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't, and, like, we were at this, like, steady impasse. But and then I realized I need to scale this back. I need to work with the people that could actually be nimble in their own businesses and that really understand how valuable this is, because when you have a small micro business and you know how to build a business based on this, on listening and values and understanding your client and delivering what they need, it's very powerful.
There's another piece to this, of course, which is, once you get clear on all of that and your messaging is on brand, you attract more of those people, and then they refer ideal
Yes.
clients to you because referrals are only as good as the person doing the referring. And I hear
Yes.
this all the time. It's like, well, I don't need marketing because I have referrals. Really? Well, have you checked that these are actually, I mean, are these the kinds of people that you actually want as clients? Are they referring? Are these quality referrals, or are they just people who are going to come in? I always say, well, don't. This is the other piece of, don't give your work away, because then they're going to refer people who also want freebie or are always looking at price, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
you have to be careful, right? Because once you put it out there, and that's why it's so important to make sure that you're on brand and you have the right messaging that's going to help you attract more of the people that you want.
100%. Back when I had my initial course like 12 years ago, I did all of these summits to build my audience so I can have a big audience. And I built the very expensive to maintain audience of close to 10,000 people in Infusionsoft. And it was a useless audience. They never bought a thing. They never engaged in any way. If I sold, I would offer all of this free content, and then the minute I sold something, they'd spam me and or they'd unsubscribe, and I finally said, "You know what?" I tossed the whole thing. I left 70 funnels in Infusionsoft,
Wow,
and I
really, it's intense, Donna. I'm just like,
I felt because it wasn't useful and it was expensive, and I was like, I'm gonna start over." And I did, and it was much, much better because I had much more knowledge at that point because I knew what I did wrong, and I built a really solid, small I mean, I have a really small list, but they respond,
Yeah.
and
What's your open your average open rate when you're sending out
it's
things?
it's really high. It's I mean, a lot of it is because of this 50 over 50,
Right.
which, everybody just loves it, but it's like 70%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the click-through rate's like 10, 12,
Hmm.
so it's really high.
Yeah.
But my list is only like 400 people.
Right.
That's it.
That's great. Yeah.
That's
No,
it.
it's I think it coming back to the cutting through the noise. You don't need that many people to cut through the noise either, because
No,
remember,
no.
every person who connects with you, who's the ideal person on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, on average, they have 500 people in their
Exactly.
network. So
Yeah,
that means that for every person you connect with, you've got potentially 500 people who could
yeah.
be part of, right? So it's a whole different way of looking at
It
this.
is a whole different way, and it's not for everybody because you have to be really honest on every front
Right.
about what you want, what you do, what your expectations are, what you can deliver. But once you embrace it, like, there's no other way to go.
And you know what? Here's the last piece of this is that honestly, it's so much more fun to do it this way.
It is. Oh, it is, it is. My nephew has a reseller business where he, like, buys stuff and does, like, storage unit clean outs, and then he resells them on different sites.
Right.
And, I went to go visit him this weekend, and, I'm helping him, like, turn this into a business. And his eyes were, like, this big because he knows how to do his part of this, but he doesn't know how to bring this into a business. But, I mean, him and his wife are so good at this, they're gonna be able to quit their jobs, at around 40 years old
That's
and
what's
do
the
this.
what's the business?
They resell things. So, like, they'll go to storage units and they'll do auctions at storage
Oh, I
units.
see. Okay. I didn't know.
And
I know you said resale, but I didn't know
yeah,
what exactly.
and they I mean, like, I'm helping him I'm helping him unload 3,300, hair straighteners. But he was gonna sell them individually. I said, "No, no, 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 we're gonna reach out to a beauty school and we're gonna cut a deal." So,
The whole idea of like, it's in the numbers, right? Like,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so, I mean, he's,
one
like
off is expensive.
he's killing himself, and, within 6 months, he's gonna have an entirely different business 'cause now it's gonna be just moving things from column A to column B.
That's awesome. Wow. He's
Yeah,
lucky
and
to have you,
it
Donna.
was just so much fun to see him, like, just to see his face change. And, it was really fun. I'm really excited to help him do this,
That's wonderful.
and, I've loved this conversation. I have absolutely loved it. I mean, I could talk to you all day long.
Thank you. Me as well. It's always so fun to talk with like-minded, but
Yeah.
it's this is how we change the conversation one person at a time.
Exactly, and, again, like, we do very similar things, and there is no competition, it's collaboration, and there's so many ways that we can combine our forces to help more people, and I look forward to exploring those in the future because I think we're a force to be had.
Likewise, Donna. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. So everybody head over to Orly's website to check out more about what she does. This interview will be up, and, share it. Um, invite friends to see it, leave comments. We will come back and um, we will respond and, keep up with them. But these interviews are here. They're here to speak to women that are over 50. They're here to inspire women who are younger and, maybe not make some of the mistakes we made when we were younger.
If only that were true. Having
Well,
children, I will tell you that
if I say it, maybe it'll happen.
they have to make their own mistakes. It's how we learn. It's how we learn,
It
Donna.
is very true, very true. But thank you for spending some time today, and, I look forward to, oh, we've got more. Okay. And I look forward to keeping this conversation going.
Thank you. Likewise. Thanks again so much for having me.
Thank you.